Hi guys, welcome to or welcome back to my Cooking with Pouncy channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, we're going to do corned beef and cabbage today. I'm going to put some real serious hurt on this corned beef. Guys, I'm quartering my potatoes as I indicated earlier. And this was a 5-pound bag of potatoes. I think I'm probably going to use, I'm using about 3.5 pounds. So again, I want these in big chunks like I'm cutting them up here. I'm going to put them right back in the same water that I'm taking them out of as I had peeled them previously. Okay, so let's finish this process here as fast as I can. Again, just quarter them. Some of them I'll cut them a little bit more than just that quarter, depending on the size of them, because I want most of the chunks to be uniform in size as well. So I'm about done with them already here. And again, I'm putting the potatoes right back in the water. You got to put those potatoes, leave them in water. Otherwise, as you know, the oxidation will cause them to turn brown, and you don't want brown potatoes. Now, guys, you see me sniffing. That's virus. That's the viruses. That's allergies. That's allergies. Well, you know what we're dealing with here, so there you have it. That's a slip. So anyway, my head of cabbage has been already washed. There were some heavy outer leaves on here, and I cut those off already as well. And so I'm going to take the core out of it here, out of the head of cabbage. And I'm not going to make a huge deal out of this, except I'm just going to cut it up here. You can cut your cabbage any way you want to cut it. I think I've removed all the leaves I wanted to remove here. Again, I'm peering down to make sure you can see. I've removed the leaves that I want to remove, and I don't like this one either. This is I don't know why I don't like it, but I don't have to like all of them. But anyway, so here we go. I've already cut that part off. I'm going to attempt to cut this in half. I think my knife is long enough. I usually make sure I have the right knife to do this process, and I think I do here, to cut through it. And then I'm going to take the core out of it, and I'll show you the core, and I'm sure you guys probably know what that is. It's right here. I'm going to cut that out of there, okay, on both of them. So I'll just angle my knife down, whatever degree angle that might be, and I'm going to try to get the whole thing at the same time so that I don't have to wrestle with it trying to take it out, okay? So let me see if I can just break it out, and it will come right out, okay? Come right out, and I won't be cooking that, obviously, which is what was my point, all right? So then I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Again, I'm peering down. There it is again. Looks like an A if you'd like to put something across there. I don't know why I said that, but anyway. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to pull that right out of there. Again, okay? Now, all I'm going to do now is cut my cut my cabbage in strips like this, like that, and I'm going to turn this one, because I want to be as uniform as I can, and I'm going to cut that one in the middle. I'm actually done with the cabbage. Peering down again to make sure you can see, and there's my cabbage, just like that, okay? Just like that. And again, once that starts cooking, you'll see what happens with that. Obviously, it's going to just be tender enough to well, you'll see. I don't know why I'm talking about it. I'll let you see it when I'm ready to do this deal, okay? So again, there's that other part of that piece I didn't like. And again, that's all I'm going to do in terms of cutting that cabbage up, right? And I'm going to put it in a little dish here. I'm going to wrap this in saran wrap for now until I'm ready to add it to my sauteed bacon, which I showed you earlier in the pot, okay? And let that cook down. Cabbage has a very high percentage, most vegetables do, leafy, very high percentage of water, and I'll be using just a little bit of chicken stock, a little bit, probably a cup maybe, in that cabbage as I'm cooking that cabbage, and you'll see that process when I get. So I've already washed the corned beef brisket, and as you can see here, I've washed it, and the little packet of pickling spice that comes along with it. Of course, I'm going to put that in my little kettle, and this is the one I'm going to use to cook the corned beef. I'll be bringing it to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, I will then turn it down to simmer, and I will literally simmer this thing for, I won't even check it for 3 hours. And I'll check it for fork tenderness, as in put the fork in and the fork comes out. Should be ready, or center or internal temperature about 160 degrees. One of the things I was going to tell you too, I use a lot, hot thermometers. Good thing to invest in. Use this one outside on my grill, gives you this one here. I use this one outside on my grill, and it gives you all of the temperatures that you need. All thermometers will do that, of course, but I use that one differently. Here's a pocket thermometer, and of course I've got a digital one here. These things aren't that expensive either. I think I got this one from maybe Target. I think it cost me about $12, maybe. I don't think it was much more than that. But this is a digital one. I like this one a lot too. And so anyway, I'm going to now take my brisket, and I'm not going to trim any fat off of this brisket. I don't need to, all right? And I say I don't need to because when I do, prior to cooking, I should say, because once it gets done, that's when I'll trim any excess fat. And it's got a fat cap right on the top that covers it, and I'm bending down to see if you can see, and I think you can. This entire top portion of the brisket is covered in fat, or a fat cap on the very top. All of that fat sounds like a yucky word, but fat's good sometimes. This will add a lot of flavor to this beef. I've got my knife in my hand here because I do see one little end here. If you can see that, I'm just going to take that off, and I just did. And that brisket's ready to go into the kettle. All right. So I'm going to take this, as I indicated, and I'm going to put it in my pot, kettle. I'll put the fat side down. I don't really think it matters. And then I'll take my seasoning packet, they're called, or pickling spice that comes with it. And I'll snip that open. Snip that open. And I'll add my pickling spice. And it doesn't matter how you put it in, you just dump it in there. Right? And I'm ready now to add to my kettle water. This water just enough to cover. It'll go higher than the cover, so you do want to cover your brisket again. It covers it. I'm going to put a lid on it. I'm going to put it on my range top here, and again I'm going to put it on high until it comes to a boil. And once it comes to a boil, I'm going to then turn it down and let it simmer again for 3 hours. And this is what I'm going to saute to cook my cabbage in. This is pretty meaty. There's a little bit of fat in there, and they're all bacon ends and pieces, and they got huge chunks of meat, which I'll throw it in there, but I want fat actually from that bacon. Here's some pieces of it fat. I want fat right now more than I want that big chunk of meat there, if you will, okay? Cut these up a little bit, like that, thusly, and I think you can see this piece sliced here, it does have fat in it. Now I'm going to cut that up a little bit as well. And I think I'm going to need a little bit more than that in my cabbage for flavor. So I'm going to grab a couple more slices of this thick sliced bacon over here. And I got, let's see, I've got another 3 slices here. I think that might be all I put in there, okay? So again, I'm going to just do this and sear it off or braise it off to crispness. Crispness, sound like I said Christmas. Crispness in my pan here. One of the other things I ran into since I talked to you guys last was my kettle. It's about an 8-quart kettle or bigger. Wasn't quite big enough for my capacity of my corned beef. I'm going to put this on the burner, and I'll show it to you at another point in time in a little bit. Yeah, just cut it in there. Nothing else is in there. As I was saying, my kettle was a bit small. I'll chop that up and throw it in here as well. And so, too small for my huge chunk of corned beef, 6-pound piece of corned beef, and one end of it stuck out of the water. You don't want that. You want it submerged in that water. So I simply cut it in half. That's the first time I've ever done that. I thought I'd come back just a moment here to show you where my baking process is. And I think you might be able to see that. And it looks really good. Got my fat in there that I'm after in order to coat my cabbage leaves as they cook. And right now, as you can see, it's still sizzling. I'm going to put a half a cup of chicken stock that I've already poured. I've lost it, here it is. I'm going to stop this from cooking because it's still sizzling, as you heard, if you can see. This is out of the refrigerator. This is cold, and I'm just stopping the cooking process on this because I don't want it to cook anymore. Okay, and that's all of the liquid I'm going to put in my cabbage. And again, that's back with you for a bit here. I've decided to, a little change in plan here. I've decided to take my carrots. I'm going to do carrots, of course, and the potatoes that I diced up earlier. But I've decided to, rather than wait for my corned beef, I'm going to put, there's going to be 4 of us, so I'm going to put that many carrots, about half of that bag. And it all depends on how many you would be having for your dinner. I'm going to put about half of that bag in there. And then I'm going to take my ladle, and I'm going to ladle on the liquid that's in my corned beef, and I won't bring the camera over, but that's what I'm going to do with my carrots. And of course, they'll get done before my potatoes, and that's why I want to get those started first. Our process here. So I've got my liquid in here, and I'm ready to, in about 15 minutes or so, put these on the heat so they can go ahead and get the al dente doneness, and then I'll put my potatoes in here as well. Okay, guys? I'm back. So I've already told you about what I'm going to do with the carrots. I've already got the water from the corned beef on my carrots. The carrots is now on. I'm waiting to bring those to a boil. And here is the pot that I'm going to put my cabbage in, which is already washed and sliced. My bacon's already sauteed. And I've got a little bit of chicken broth. I think I mentioned a half a cup of chicken broth in here. And that's going like crazy. You may be able to see that. Yes, you can. And then now I'm going to start putting my cabbage in. As you can see, it's already sliced. And I'm going to leave it up on high. I'm going to leave it on high so that it'll continue to cook. And I will be stirring it throughout the entire process. And all I'm going to add to this cabbage is salt and pepper. Salt and pepper will be the only other spices I'll put in this cabbage. Now, obviously, there's many different ways you can prepare this, but this is very good, very good. Okay, so now I'm going to add my salt to taste. It's just regular salt. You can certainly use sea salt if you'd like as you prepare yours. I'm just going to do a little shake, shake, shake for taste. And I'll do the same thing with my coarse ground pepper. And I'll do a little shake, shake, shake as well. And that's essentially all I'm going to do with that process. Now, as I stir this and it starts to cook down, I will probably add a bit more, probably no more liquid, but a bit more seasoning to this process. And you can see here what I've got going here. And this pot's pretty full right now because of the volume of the cabbage. Cabbage is obviously high content of water, and that water content is probably higher than probably 80–85%. So it's going to cook way down to about right here, right? So right now, before I cover it, and I will be doing that shortly, I'm going to stir it from the bottom, which is what you have to do. It looks and feels a little awkward, but that's what you got to do, because your cabbage is going to be cooking from the bottom. The same thing happens when you're cooking greens, and I did a video that'll show you that as well. So I'm just getting that liquid stirred up and getting it started here to start doing its own thing. So anyway, I'm going to cover that just like I said, and let that start to do its thing. Continually stirring it until I get all of that liquid into the top and the insides of that cabbage, so it can cook in its own juices, is what I'm trying to say here. All right, guys, I'm back for a moment. Cabbage is all done, and as I said, it's about down to here now. And I'll give you a gander at that and see what it looks like, and it's beautiful. It's a bit al dente, and that's how we want it. We don't want the cabbage to overcook and become soggy, okay? So that's what I'm going to do with that cabbage. And I think I'm going to now I'll actually take my dish out, and I'm going to put my cabbage in. You see that process? See how we do that. And it's beautiful. It is just beautiful. As you can see, and I think you can see that. It's just beautiful. And that cabbage actually is still cooking a little bit because it's so doggone hot. But then that's what happens when you're cooking. And so that's why sometimes, too, you got to pay attention to when you're taking your stuff off and putting it on, because it's actually still cooking. If you don't want to overcook it, you got to anticipate that. So you cook that cabbage like I just did, 10–12 minutes. And you got some al dente cabbage, and it is absolutely beautiful. I wish you guys could smell that. I can. And we're going to be enjoying that in a little bit. So I'm going to set that back in the oven for just a bit. bit. Keep it warm. My potatoes and carrots are just about ready. We've got our corned beef here. And remember early on I told you I wasn't going to trim any fat off until I was at the very end of this process. I've actually taken it out of its boiling water to let it rest for just a bit before I start shaving fat off of it. I'm going to shut my carrots and potatoes off right now as well. Of course, these are very hot. Again, here's that fat cover that I'm going to take off because we're not going to eat this. So I'll just kind of very gingerly slice this down to the meat. And you'll see when I get to the meat here, I'm not going to cut down into the meat, except if it's a little accident, that'll happen as well. But I'm just kind of shaving that fat off the top of it. And this corned beef cooked for 3 hours, exactly 3 hours. Actually attained a temperature of about 180 instead of 160 degrees. So we know that this is done, okay? And that's all the trimming I'm going to do for this one. I'll get the other piece as I continue to cut here. But now I'm actually down to the meat, and here it is right here, right? So we're going to put that one back here. We'll take this guy, and we'll do the same thing. We'll do the same thing for this one. That fat cap off of there. And that's actually what added all that flavor to this corned beef as well. So these are trimmed pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is, I think I'll just go ahead and start slicing it and putting it in my dish, and I'm going to serve it out of. After I remove all this other stuff here that we're not going to be using, okay? I'm going to slice this. Now, for those of you that don't know, there's a grain component to this whole process. A grain as in which way the meat runs. The grain runs in the meat, okay? And so we're going to make sure that we slice it across the grain instead of with the grain. I can look at this one and tell, and I don't know whether you can see that or not, but as I'm looking at it, the grain is running this way, okay? It's running this way. So I'm going to cut that way, either side, okay? The grain is running this way. So I'm going to start slicing this way, okay? That way it's very, very tender. It's tender anyway, but if you slice it with the grain, now you got some chewy corned beef, and you don't want that, all right? You don't want chewy corned beef. So that's what we're doing here. And this corned beef is very tender, and I'll show you that. That's very tender, okay? That's what you want. That is what you want. Folks that we having over for dinner are standing on the other side of this camera watching this method here. If they weren't standing there, I'd eat a slice of this while I'm slicing it, but I won't do that. I don't want them to know I do that occasionally. So anyway, that is just beautiful, okay? So there you are. There's the slices. I think, again, you can see that. And I'm going to put them in my dish. All right. And we have the other one here. I don't know if we'll eat all of this, but I'm going to slice it anyway. And again, there's some fat cover that I want to take off. I could feel it when I pick this up, okay? And again, following the grain, which you got to do, because again, you don't want to cut it with the grain. Let me try to hold that up so you can see it. I better get my fork because that is very hot. And again, this is for those of you that don't know. The grain is running this way, like that. It's running like that. In other words, it looks stringy going that way. And what I want to do with my cut is to cut across that this way. And that's what I'm going to do, okay? So, I'll start over here, and I'll do the same thing that I did for the other one as I slice this. Beautiful, just beautiful. Don't get any better than that, folks. Ouch, hot. Very, very good. Very, very tender. Very, very tasty. If you've never done it this way, I recommend and urge you to try that. And again, I've prepared corned beef every which way you can. I like this method. It's very simple and extremely tasty. And I think if you do this yourself, for yourself and your family, that you guys will enjoy it as well. But again, here we go with our slices. And see that again? It's just beautiful. And it's very hot. So here we go. I'm going to pan these up as well. And we're all done with that. I'm going to set those back in the oven for just a bit, since the oven has residual heat on my cabbage that's in there. This is going to be piping hot when it gets to the table shortly. interim, I'm going to drain my water from my carrots. Let me show you that. My carrots and potatoes. Drain my water from that. Yep, you can see that. I'm going to be draining these, and these are al dente as well. Let me take a carrot out for you and show you what I'm talking about here. I know the cutting board's all yucky here, but I just want to show you this, all right? These are al dente. This is very, very nice. You can, your knife go down through them. Perfect, okay? All right, guys, here we go. Steaming hot potatoes and carrots. I'm going to put them right here together. And again, I use the same water that the corned beef was cooked in for these potatoes and carrots. Aren't they pretty? Oh, yeah, they are. So I won't put anything else on them. The guests will put salt and pepper if they want salt and pepper on theirs. What I am going to do is drizzle a little butter. Butter's never hurt anybody. I'm just saying. I'm doing that because I'm going to put a little bit of dressing on that. I started with 1/4 of a stick of butter, but I'm not going to use all that. Just a little glistening on those vegetables, okay? All right. Now I'm going to sprinkle just a little parsley on there for color. You wouldn't want white and orange vegetables with nothing green on it. I would be, folks. There you have it. Okay, in just a moment I'm going to prepare a plate for service, just so you can see what that's like. And then we can be eating. So anyway, that's what that looks like. Again, the vegetables are really nice, al dente, cooked perfectly, and we're going to be putting all this together. Guys, I had to change gloves, and I just did, so we're going to assemble a plate here. Now, our guests might put their food on any way they want to put it on, but that's okay as well. So, all right, so what I'm going to do here, first of all, is I'm going to put down a little cabbage. Some of this beautiful cabbage. Beautiful cabbage, okay. All right, and now I'm going to grab some potatoes and carrots. Okay, make sure you see that here. Potatoes and some carrots here. Gotta balance that out for color now, people. So here we go. I got my carrots, potatoes, and cabbage. And what I'm going to do now is I just will shingle, kind of shingle fashion, some corned beef on that cabbage, thusly. I'm just going to make just a beautiful plate, all right? So there we have it. There we have it. Now we take got some muffins here, the corn muffins I talked about earlier today. And then right here, they came out of the oven a little while ago. And we're going to have a muffin. I'm going to assume that someone's going to eat a muffin. Anyway, that's the finished product. Isn't that beautiful? There's your corned beef and cabbage. There's your vegetables. There's the made from scratch muffin. And we're about ready for supper. So guys, again, thank you so much for tuning in to Cooking with Pouncy. Please share this video with others. Tell me what you think as well. And hopefully we'll see you again next time. Thank you so much for watching.